Chapter 8. Lemuria. Many attempts have been made to establish locality and proof of the existence of this fabled continent, said to have been situated in the Pacific, but with little impact on scientific beliefs and geological evidence. The fact is that Lemuria, more than any other part of the Earth crust, had an existence more in the ethereal than in the physical. Zoros had tried to explain to me how the Garden Beautiful literally melted into a physical condition, a whole realm descending into material constituency. I am fully aware how difficult many must find this to accept, especially if they have any idea of geological formation and prehistoric events. We must just accept that unacceptability as evidence of how far we are from any real understanding of our true nature and that of the seemingly solid world in which we live. Our knowledge of the atomic theory has done much to explode our medieval notions of the nature of matter, but tradition and inhibited ideas die hard. In Lemuria, we have to deal with an admixture of races, where the ascending race was mixing rapid progress along material line, and the descent of their rescue of the Adamic race, which was already coming under the dark spell of the people, whose intellect was growing sufficiently to enable some memory of their past to invade their consciousness, bringing with its age-old desires for experiment, for conquest, for some expression of the great powers they once possessed. The task of the Adamic ones was to lift this consciousness as far above the mundane as possible, so as to prevent the returning knowledge from being put to evil use. This they did educationally, and by the example they demonstrated to the inferior races. To these the shining ones from a spiritual world must have seemed as the saints do to us in our day, for not only were they beautiful by contrast, but they held their clairvoyant powers and their innate wisdom. Some of them became priest-kings, holding great respect and great power over the darker people. Thus the embryonic minds grew towards intellectually and became subject to reason rather than instinct. It was from this land that the legend of the third eye emanated, and in primordial carvings of gods and goddesses this organ is often depicted, located in the center of the forehead. It was never biologically visible, being present only in the etheric body of an advanced soul. But the progress was not constant or always upward. The symbolism of sacrifice often degenerated into blood sacrifice. The initial idea was that of a liberation of the spirit from the flesh, but the value of the offering soon took greater place in the minds of the celebrants than the mystic meaning. There is a deep psychic significance in the shedding of blood, lost to our materialistic understanding, which released considerable psychic power in those far-off days. Adepts soon realized this and employed those powers to impress the worshippers, thus gaining much power over them, till finally, through a terrible perversion of the law of love, they found that by sacrifice of their most treasured possessions, the eldest son, immense effects were produced. I had many glimpses of this rapidly developing race, increasing in numbers due to the steady rise in the standard of living. It is not easy to recall what I saw of this people, nor of the earlier races, because of the somewhat ethereal nature of matter as then manifested. The world was still not quite physical in relation to our rate of vibration, and so were the bodies of the people a little out of focus to my vision. It was because of the wholesale destruction of this continent by volcanic disturbance and subsidence that so little evidence remains of its erstwhile existence, though many feel that Easter Island holds the secret of its later culture. For the rest, we have to rely upon myth and legend and certain geological characteristics for any proof of its locality. The giant Lemurians built great cities of lava-like basalt, hewn by their great muscles into slabs beyond the capacity of modern brawn. Yet because it was then not so concrete as now, the effort would not be so great. In China and Mongolia there are relics of unbelievable antiquity thought to be associated with these peoples, while the Polynesians are thought to be their direct descendants. In those days everything was proportionally bigger than what we are accustomed to, and the great size of buildings, etc., and the giant forms of vegetation may have given rise to more modern notions that size means greatness. As the seasons changed, the Lemurians responded with appropriate ritual and ceremony, thus marking their growing acknowledgement of divine rhythmic process of creation. Slowly they were becoming aware of a great power outside of themselves, to which recognition must be given. Generation by generation, enlightenment grew as the process of reincarnation enabled the stained souls to seek rehabilitation in the remedial experience of earthly life. But as the intelligence of the incarnate souls grow, so did the dim memory of their one-time creative knowledge emerge into their consciousness, and some were not slow to put this knowledge to evil use once again. Zeros assured me that this had been foreseen. It could not be helped. The race had to be redeemed, even though some still strove to plunge it into fresh disaster. The indications were small at first, the self-confidence of a conqueror leading to an overweening desire for power, the psychic powers of the priests giving them immense stranglehold over a superstitious people. Man had fallen through the misuse of his free will, and only through his free will could he be brought back to the fold. So the infection had to be allowed to spread, even though it meant ultimate disaster to this particular civilization. Spiritual beings in charge of this doomed race strove mightily to keep the evil within bounds, but these efforts were as flames to the fires of eager desire. Soon nation fought nation for mastery, tribe fought tribe within the nations. Perversion and black alchemy were practiced until the situation deteriorated beyond hope. Destruction, which man has hitherto achieved in small ratio with gun and bomb, was exceeded many times by these powerful people. In considering the powers exercised by the Lemurians, Zeros put in, you have to remember the pliability of matter unknown to our day. Moreover, although these people were not what you call in a high state of industrial civilization, nevertheless they had power that you might envy. They had some degree of control over matter, mental control over atomic adhesion to which your materialistics would never admit. Can you wonder that this degenerate civilization had to be destroyed because of an illicit expression of their knowledge, which was filtering back with their dawning intellect? Yet you may be sure that from the divine point of view nothing of value was lost. Millions of incarnations were cut short. But to deity, death is not something to fear. It is release, promotion, a new phase of life and experience. All that was best in that continent was carried forward to a new existence by souls who remained true to their destiny. In the end, the unhappy land was riven by earthquakes and literally burnt out by volcanic action. Vast masses of land subsided during the lengthy period of this blasting of a continent, until eventually only pitiful remnants of a mighty race remained clinging desperately to mountaintops, which are now numbered among the new lands constituting the archipelagos between the land masses of Asia and Australia. Only the more advanced souls were inspired to emigrate, and under divine guidance, these were led to new countries where it was intended the new light was to be fostered among indigenous inhabitants, already forming the rudiments of a new civilization, one of the most famous in the history of the planet, the fabulous continent of Atlantis. Thus was consummated another fall of man. Already faded from earth memory, it was a seeming triumph of evil over good. Yet quiet reflection shows that it was otherwise in the eyes of a loving Father. An immense amount of original sin must have been dissipated through the growth and the struggles of the Lemurian people, and also in the trembling foundation of the erupting soil. Though this might be counted as a setback if one thinks in terms of time and the incidents of physical death and disruption of family life, in reality there was unbroken progress, for life went on in other realms. The climb was not translated to other spheres of influence. Nothing of enduring value was lost, and much of no value at all was destroyed. Thus it happens in the disappearance of all the great civilizations from the broad face of earth. Destiny plays its part amid the grim enactment, and the supreme love of God ensures that everything works together for good. It is only in our limited understanding that we can see loss in the fall of empires. Such was the lesson to be learned from the rise and fall of the great community, the land of Lemuria.